He was the perfect husband, until his first wife showed up at the door. The sunlight streamed through the open kitchen windows, casting a golden hue across the marble countertops. The scent of vanilla and fresh blueberries wafted in the air as Claire carefully spooned muffin batter into a tray, her mind humming to the soft background of jazz playing from a speaker tucked on the windowsill. She was barefoot, in one of Alex's old button-down shirts and pajama shorts, smiling at the small splatter of flour on her wrist. Everything about the moment felt ordinary in the best possible way. Simple, warm, safe. Alex walked in behind her, freshly showered, smelling like cedar and coffee. He kissed her on the cheek with the easy affection of a man who'd done it 1,000 times and planned to do it 1,000 more. "Garden's calling my name," he said, ruffling his hair with one hand, grabbing the newspaper with the other. "You holler when the muffins are done." 10 minutes, Claire replied, flashing a grin. "Try not to trim the roses into extinction." He chuckled and slid open the back patio door, stepping into the yard, phone already in hand. His voice drifted in through the screen as he greeted someone with a casual laugh. Claire turned her attention back to the oven, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Then came the knock. From unmistakable. Not the neighbor's child or the UPS guy's usual two-tap rhythm. Just deliberate. Claire wiped her hands on a towel and walked to the front door, more curious than anything. Maybe a local fundraiser? Or someone who'd lost their dog? She opened the door. Standing on the porch was a woman in her late 30s. Medium height. Wavy brown hair tied back in a messy ponytail. She wore jeans and a travel-worn coat over a faded blouse. Her eyes, dark, tired, haunted, met Claire's with a strange mix of determination and dread. At her side sat a medium suitcase, the kind you didn't bring on a short visit. There was a long pause. The woman's lips parted, and what came out felt like a scalpel slicing through the fabric of Claire's life. "Hi," she said, voice low but steady. "I'm looking for my husband, Alex Summers. I'm his wife." Claire didn't move. Didn't breathe. Her fingers tightened involuntarily around the towel still in her hand. Somewhere behind her, a beeping sound started, faint and sharp. The muffins. Burning. But she couldn't look away. In the backyard, Alex laughed at something someone said over the phone. Oblivious. Relaxed. Married. Claire stood there, rooted, mind racing. Who was this woman? Was she lying? Was Alex? And then another terrifying thought bloomed in the pit of her stomach. What if she wasn't lying at all? Claire had always considered herself a realist, someone who didn't fall for fairy tales or lose herself in impossible expectations. That made what happened with Alex all the more surreal. It started at her best friend Mia's wedding, under a canopy of twinkling lights strung between cypress trees. The evening had been the usual swirl of speeches, laughter, and flowing champagne, but Claire remembered the exact moment she saw him. He stood near the bar, dressed in a midnight blue suit that fit like it had been tailored for him alone, laughing softly at something the bartender said. There was something magnetic about him, not just his looks, though those were undeniable, but the calm, centered way he held himself in a room full of noise. Claire hadn't planned to approach him. She was usually the type to observe from afar, maybe make a snarky comment to a friend and sip her wine. But he'd caught her watching and without hesitation, walked over and introduced himself. "Alex Summers," he said, holding out his hand. "And you are?" "Claire. Maid of honor. Occasional cake thief." He'd laughed, and that laugh, it wasn't loud or forced, but genuine easy. She felt it in her chest. From that night things moved fast. Not recklessly fast, but intensely, as if something in the universe had clicked into place. Alex was everything her past boyfriends hadn't been. Attentive without being possessive. Confident without arrogance. He didn't try to fix her, or tame her, or outshine her. He made her feel seen. Heard. He planned thoughtful dates, remembered small things, her favorite flower, the weird way she liked her coffee, the fact that she always slept with socks even in the summer. He seemed to know what she needed before she did. After 6 months, he surprised her with a weekend in Lake Tahoe. After 12, they were living together. 18 months in, they were married under a vine-wrapped archway in Napa. It was small and perfect, with handwritten vows, a bluegrass band, and a sunset that looked like it had been painted for them. Alex was a financial consultant, he'd told her. Traveled often, mostly for wealthy international clients. A lot of Europeans and Canadians with US investments, he'd explained once over dinner. I know, sounds like code for drug lord, but I swear it's just boring spreadsheets. She'd laughed, never pressing too hard. She didn't need to. Everything about him felt solid. When he traveled, he'd call every night, send her photos of hotel balconies and street markets, surprise her with souvenirs he somehow always got right. A scarf from Morocco. A silver bracelet from Prague. Saffron from Spain. Claire's friends would sigh, joking that she'd hit the jackpot. She had. Or so she thought. He'd encouraged her to leave her high-stress PR job in the city, to move with him to the quieter suburbs just outside of Portland. You've been running at 100 miles per hour, he'd said. What if you just didn't? So she tried it. Freelanced a bit. Started painting again. Took up gardening. And through it all, Alex remained her anchor. Steady. Loving. He didn't have social media, not even a LinkedIn, and his study was always locked when he wasn't home. But Claire chalked it up to being old-fashioned. Privacy is underrated these days, he'd say. Some things are better kept sacred. She believed him. He brought her breakfast in bed on weekends, scrambled eggs, black coffee, toast with marmalade. He left sticky notes on her mirror with inside jokes. They danced barefoot in the kitchen. He remembered their anniversary down to the hour. Her life had gone from chaotic subway commutes and endless emails to golden hour dinners and spontaneous road trips. It had felt like peace. Love, the way it was supposed to be. But now, standing in the hallway with the scent of scorched muffins still lingering in the air, Claire's mind began unraveling all those perfect memories, trying to find the seams. The woman at the door had looked exhausted. Not like a scammer. Not like a lunatic. But like someone who had been searching. What if the reason Alex was so perfect was because he'd done this before? What if she wasn't his one and only? What if she was the second act of a show she didn't even know she was part of? Claire stood in the doorway, her heart jackhammering against her ribcage, the floor beneath her suddenly unstable. The woman, Sophie, held her gaze without blinking, as if willing Claire to believe her through sheer force of conviction. I'm sorry to just show up, Sophie said, her voice trembling slightly. I wouldn't have, but I had no other choice. I've been looking for him for years. Claire's throat tightened, but she managed to say, there must be a mistake. Alex, he's my husband. We've been married for 5 years. Sophie nodded slowly, eyes glassy. I know. I found your wedding photo online. That's how I knew where to look. This, she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a creased folder. This is our marriage certificate. She handed it over. Claire's fingers shook as she unfolded the document. It was old, worn from handling, but there it was, Alexander James Summers. Sophie Lynn Caldwell. Married in a courthouse in Chicago. 7 years ago. The date hit Claire like a slap. It was 2 years before she even met Alex. No, Claire whispered. No, this has to be some mistake. He would have told me. This can't be real. Sophie gave a hollow laugh, too bitter to be amused. You think I want it to be? He disappeared 4 years ago. Just gone. No note. No phone call. His office told me he'd resigned. I waited. I called hospitals. Police. Even filed a missing persons report. I thought he was dead. Claire's knees gave slightly and she leaned on the wall. Her ears were ringing. I thought I was going crazy, Sophie continued. Then I found this old Gmail address he used to use when he traveled. It hadn't been touched in years. I sent a message anyway. Didn't expect anything. But then I got a read receipt. Last week. I followed the IP address, don't ask how, and it led me here. I just wanted to see for myself. I didn't expect. Claire blinked rapidly. I don't understand. He never said anything. He never. Sophie looked down. I know. I get it. You didn't know. Claire clutched the certificate, her eyes scanning it over and over, searching for some detail that would reveal it as a forgery. But it was official. Witnessed. Her mind went blank. "Come inside," she said numbly. "You look like you need to sit down." Sophie hesitated, then stepped inside, dragging her suitcase with a soft rolling sound that made Claire's skin crawl. She couldn't reconcile it. The suitcase, the marriage certificate, this broken woman standing in her foyer, claiming the same man who had made Claire breakfast in bed that very morning. Sophie looked around the house with an unreadable expression. Her eyes lingered on the family photos. The framed wedding picture above the mantel. Claire followed her gaze. "This was our song," Sophie murmured, pointing toward the record player spinning a faint jazz tune. "He used to play it in the mornings while we made pancakes." Claire's mouth went dry. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, but all she could do was stare. Then Sophie's hand brushed her coat pocket again and pulled something small out. A ring. Not just any ring. The same custom band Claire wore on her own left hand. Simple rose gold with a unique double etching, 2 intersecting waves. Alex had said it symbolized how their lives flowed together. Sophie held it up. "I never took it off until last year," she said quietly. "But I couldn't move on with it. I couldn't throw it away either." Claire instinctively touched her own ring, her breath catching as she compared them side by side. They were identical. Same design. Same shimmer. Same inscription inside the band. "To forever, even in the chaos." Claire felt like vomiting. She backed away, chest heaving. No. This can't be real. You have the same ring. He said he designed it just for me." Sophie looked at her with heartbreaking sympathy. "He said the same thing to me." And then the patio door slid open behind them. "Hey babe, do we still have?" Alex stepped into the room mid-sentence and froze. His phone dropped from his hand and landed on the hardwood floor with a clatter. Claire turned toward him slowly, her face pale as chalk. Sophie stood behind her like a ghost come to life. Alex's eyes flicked between them. The marriage certificate on the table. The matching rings. The suitcase by the door. His jaw twitched. And then, finally, he said the words Claire would replay in her head for the rest of her life. "I can explain." The memory flickers in Sophie's mind like an old film reel, grainy around the edges, but heartbreakingly vivid. She had met Alex on a snowy December evening in Chicago, at a charity fundraiser downtown. He wore a navy suit, laughed with easy charm, and brought her a glass of wine before she could even ask. He listened when she spoke, asked questions, made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in years. 6 months later, they were married in a small civil ceremony. No family, no fuss, just them, a judge, and the rush of something that felt real and burning. In the beginning, he was warm, generous, thoughtful. He brought her croissants from the bakery on her bad days, kissed her on the shoulder before leaving for work, called her Red for her copper hair. Their apartment overlooked the lake, and on quiet mornings they'd drink coffee on the fire escape, watching the city stir. But then, something shifted. It was gradual, like rust on metal. First came the job loss. He didn't go into detail, just said his company had folded, too many layoffs. He said he'd figure something out. That she shouldn't worry. But he started staying out late. Said he was freelancing for international clients. He'd take calls in the hallway, whispering in low tones. She found receipts for hotel rooms across the state. When she confronted him, he'd get quiet. Shut down. Say she was overreacting. And then one day, he was gone. Just gone. She came home from a shift at the hospital to find drawers emptied, his watch missing from the nightstand. Half of their joint savings wiped out. No note. No explanation. His phone rang endlessly until it was disconnected. She filed a missing persons report. Cried through every answer at the station. Waited. For months, she woke up expecting to find him at the door. Then, eventually, she stopped expecting anything at all. Until the email. Until Claire. That night, after Sophie had gone to sleep in the guest room, Claire sat on the edge of the bed she'd shared with Alex for 5 years, staring at her husband like he was a stranger. He sat across from her, hands clenched. Hair disheveled. He hadn't shaved. He looked 10 years older than he had that morning. "Tell me everything," Claire said. Alex exhaled, long and slow. It wasn't like how she said. Claire's eyes didn't move. She and I, we weren't working. We fought all the time. I lost my job, and instead of helping, she blamed me. I was depressed. I didn't know how to fix it. I felt like a failure. So you left. I felt like I was drowning, Claire. I didn't want to keep hurting her. Or myself. I thought if I disappeared, it would be easier. Cleaner. I didn't mean to start a new life, it just happened. You stole from her, Claire said quietly. I took what I needed to start over. She would have fought me on it. She was never going to let go. She was unstable. Always accusing me of cheating, of hiding things. She made me feel like nothing. Claire's chest twisted. The Alex she knew was measured, calm, steady. He cried when her mother passed away. He once drove 2 hours to bring her soup when she was sick during a girls' retreat. But now, she didn't know if any of it had been real. You never thought to tell me? She asked. I wanted to. So many times. But how do you say, hey, by the way, I abandoned my last wife and faked my life? I was scared. You were everything good in my life. I didn't want to lose it. You lied to me every day. Alex's voice cracked. I lied to keep you. That admission stung more than anything else. Claire didn't respond. The silence stretched between them like a canyon. She went to the kitchen and poured herself a glass of water with trembling hands. The house felt too quiet, too clean. Too fake. Sophie's words echoed in her mind. Her grief hadn't looked performative. It had looked lived in. Claire stared down at the wedding ring on her hand, identical to Sophie's. She slipped it off slowly. Who was this man she married? Could both stories be true in different shades? Could Alex be both a victim of his past and an architect of deception? She needed answers, real ones. Not filtered through charm or sorrow. She turned back toward the living room where Alex waited, head in hands. I don't know who you are, she said, voice low. But I'm going to find out. She walked down the hall toward the guest room and gently opened the door. Sophie stirred. I want to hear everything, Claire said. From the beginning. She didn't trust Alex anymore. And she didn't fully trust Sophie yet, either. But she trusted herself to dig until the truth surfaced, no matter what it destroyed. Claire sat in her car for nearly 10 minutes before stepping out. The PI's office was tucked behind a laundromat downtown, nothing flashy, just a brass plaque that read J. Doyle, Private Investigations. The waiting room smelled faintly of old coffee and lemon disinfectant. A framed picture of a German shepherd in a bulletproof vest hung on the wall. Jenna Doyle was exactly as Claire imagined. Sharp eyes, leather jacket, a silver streak in her tight ponytail. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. He ghosted his first wife and created a new identity. You want to know if that's all, or just the tip of the iceberg? Claire nodded. Jenna leaned back in her chair. Let's find out. Back home, Claire couldn't sleep. The events of the last 48 hours unspooled in her mind like a horror film on loop. She found herself standing outside Alex's locked study by 3 a.m., her bare feet silent against the hardwood floor. She had once called his privacy romantic, even charming. Now, it felt like a barricade against the truth. She rummaged through his toolbox in the garage and found a set of tiny lockpicks, a souvenir from a road trip. Her hands shook as she worked the lock, heart thudding in her ears. After a few clumsy minutes, there was a soft click. The door creaked open. Inside, it looked like a home office, neat, sterile. A laptop on the desk. A filing cabinet in the corner. Bookshelves lined with finance manuals and dusty novels. But it was the locked drawer in the desk that caught her eye. She used the same hairpin trick. Inside the drawer, 2 passports, one American, one Canadian. Different names. Same photo. 3 driver's licenses. Different states. Same face. She found a folder of documents, insurance forms, bank statements, and dozens of unopened letters. All from Sophie. Claire's stomach turned as she flipped through them. Pleas. Confessions. Questions. One had tear stains across the ink. None had been opened. She had a sudden urge to burn them all, and then an even stronger urge to keep reading. And then the photo. It was folded behind an envelope with no return address. A woman Claire didn't recognize, tall, dark-skinned, with a warm smile, stood with her arm around a small boy. The child couldn't be more than 5. They stood in front of a house, grinning like a family. Claire sat down, dizzy. Her phone buzzed. Jenna. Claire, we got something. Claire swallowed. Go ahead. There's a property in Seattle. Bought 3 years ago. Paid in full. Registered under the alias from one of those passports you mentioned? Yeah, I figured you'd check his study. Claire couldn't speak. There's more, Jenna added. There's utility usage. Cell activity. Someone's been living there. And I don't think it's just him. Claire looked at the photo again, at the boy's dimples, so familiar. Her hands trembled. She whispered into the phone, "Who did I marry?" Jenna paused. "We're just getting started." Claire waited until dinner. She set the table like usual, steak, wine, candles. Alex looked relieved, even hopeful. For a moment, he probably thought things were returning to normal. Then she dropped the photo in front of him. He stared at it for a long time. Said nothing. Next came the 2 passports. The fake IDs. The unopened letters. "I went into your study," Claire said, voice quiet but steady. "I know everything." Alex slumped back in his chair like someone had cut the strings that held him upright. His fork clattered to the floor. "Claire," his voice cracked. "Please. Let me explain." "No more explanations," she said. "Just the truth." He rubbed his hands over his face, then looked at her, red-eyed, exposed. "Sophie was my wife, yes. I didn't leave her because I hated her. I left because I didn't know who I was anymore. I'd ruined everything." "And the child?" she asked. He hesitated. "That's from Lila, a woman I married in Vegas after Sophie. It was impulsive. It was annulled within a week. But yeah, the boy might be mine. I send money." Claire's stomach twisted. "So I'm what? Wife number 3? "No," Alex said, leaning forward. "You were the beginning of something real. I swear. I walked away from the cons, the lies. You were the fresh start I never thought I deserved." Claire could almost laugh. A fresh start? With a man who had lied to 2 other women, abandoned a child, and buried his past like a corpse in the backyard? He reached for her hand. She didn't flinch. But she didn't offer it either. "I love you, Claire. I'm not that man anymore. Please don't leave." She stared at him. In that moment, it wasn't just Alex breaking apart. It was her illusions, her faith, the story she had written in her mind about their love. But Claire wasn't falling apart. Not this time. She stood up slowly. "You say you've changed," she said. "But because I have too." He blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not staying quiet. I'm not shrinking. I'm not here to patch up your mess." And for the first time in days, Claire felt her own power returning. Not as a wife, but as herself. The morning after Claire confronted Alex, the house felt impossibly still. No footsteps, no idle humming, no forced apologies. Just silence. Sophie knocked around noon, carrying 2 paper cups of coffee and a bottle of wine under her arm. Claire opened the door, eyes red but posture straight. They sat on the porch. No words at first, just sipping, the occasional exhale. Finally, Claire broke the silence. "He told me you were unstable. That you wouldn't let go." Sophie laughed bitterly. "He said the same about you." They looked at each other, eyes narrowing. Then, simultaneous, small smiles. A truce formed in the shared exhaustion. They moved inside. Claire poured the wine. Sophie kicked off her shoes. Stories started spilling. Did he ever pretend not to know how the dishwasher worked? Claire asked. Sophie nodded. And the washing machine. And the thermostat. Real, guttural laughter. Not because it was funny, but because it was finally safe to laugh. As the glasses emptied, Sophie's voice softened. He convinced me to invest in a business once. A fake marketing consultancy. Said it was a way for us to build something together. Claire tensed. I signed over everything, Sophie continued. Savings, business, name on the lease. A month later, he was gone. Left me with debt collectors. Claire stared at her. He told me he used to con people, but that he changed. Maybe he did, Sophie said. But only for a while. Or maybe just enough to win you over. Claire leaned back, staring at the ceiling. I can't believe how stupid I feel. You're not, Sophie said firmly. We loved someone who never existed. That doesn't make us stupid. That makes him cruel. They sat in silence again, but now it was warmer, charged with understanding instead of pain. Claire raised her glass. No more tears. Sophie clinked hers. No more hiding. They looked at each other, and in that moment, something shifted. They weren't just survivors. They were co-conspirators. Claire grabbed a notebook from the counter. If he conned you, there's paperwork, trails, maybe even criminal activity. Sophie's eyes lit up. And he forged a few things under my name. I might have the files. Together, they leaned in over the kitchen island, plotting, documenting, building a case. It was no longer about betrayal. It was about taking their power back and making sure Alex Summers never fooled another woman again.